If you go on our website www.fortinlaw.com and click on maths, online maths practice, and click here to enter math practice modules, you'll see that there are a number of modules: practice modules for children, mathematics modules for children to practice, and within those modules there is a script called decimal fraction grid, for example. Now what it is, this is the website address, and what it is, it gives you a grid and it has a number of cells, and some of the cells are colored, and you have to type in a decimal number to tell what decimal fraction is illustrated here. Okay, so 0.88, for example, this one. Okay, so this is 0.70, and so on and so forth. So in this lesson I'll show you how to create this grid. Well, the basic grid, not all the functionality, and this is what we're going to create. Okay, so refresh this one. It will ask you for a number, and you type in a number. I'm typing 3, for example, and the script will create 3 rows and 3 columns. Okay, if I refresh it, type in a different number, number 5, for example, so the script has created a grid with 5 rows and 5 columns. So we'll see in this lesson, we'll learn how to create such a grid. So this is the script that we were using, and I will open my Sublime text editor. You can use any text editor that you want, and I will save this as on my desktop grid2.html. okay, so I've saved this file as a HTML file, and this is where it has been saved, but there's nothing in there. So if you just double click on it, it will be a blank page. So I'll reset the size of the page, and I will reset the size of my editor, so we have both the things side by side. So this is the editor and this is the browser. So I'll create a basic HTML structure, and as always I'll try to keep the code to a very minimum. I'm removing the title because it's not absolutely necessary for learning purposes. And within the head tag, I want to create a style tag, and this is where we want to assign a style to the HTML elements that we are going to create. And within the body, I want to create my script. Okay, so in an effort to keep the code to a very minimum, this series is for beginners, and I want to create I want to make it very simple. Okay, because I know the newcomers, the new starters, get overwhelmed by the sheer size of the code. Okay, so in this simple HTML page, we have a HTML element, an opening and closing tag, and there's a head, opening and closing tag, and within these within this element we have style tags where we'll provide CSS style, and then this is where we will type in the JavaScript. So we'll make use of the table element in HTML to create this script. And first of all, I want to create a, within this body tag, I will create a table element, and I will give it an ID of square, for example. Okay, if I save it, nothing will happen because this table does not have any style. So I want to target this table element, an opening and curly bracket, and that's how you write CSS. And I want to have this table a border of 1 pixel solid black. Okay, so if I save it now, and I also want to give it a width of 500 pixels, a height of 500 pixels, and also border spacing of 0.5 pixels. Okay, so if I save it now, we should have a basic table structure. Border has a thickness of 1 pixel and the size is 500 by 500. So the next thing is within the script tag. So I will create a constant, I call it box, and I will use document.getElement by id method, and the id of this element is square. So I'll copy this and I will paste it here. Okay, so I've created a constant by the name of box, and all it is doing, it is holding this table in the memory. Okay, and I will create another constant, I'll call it num. This constant, and you can also use a variable, this constant is short for number, and it will prompt the user for an input, enter a number for example. So save it now, refresh it, and there's a prompt that says enter a number, which we have written here, and I can type in a number, but nothing will happen as we have done nothing that we need to do. So when a user enters a number, we want to run a function. Okay, and I'll call it render grid. Okay, and this is how you run a function, but we have not created this function as yet. So I will say function. Okay, and the name of this function is render grid. So I have to have the same name here, an opening curly bracket and a closing curly bracket, and within this function I want to run a for loop. I will say for I is the name of the variable that I'm using. I'm assigning a value of 0 to this variable, and I want this loop to run until the value of I remains below this number that the users type in. Okay, and if the value of I is less than this number, I want the value of I to increase by 1 every time loop runs. And other opening and closing curly bracket, and every time the loop runs I want to do this, creating a variable called tr, and I want to dynamically create an element, and the element is tr, table row. Okay, so we have created an element called tr, which is short for table row, and then we have saved it in this constant or variable. You can use a word variable here as well if you want. I want to run another loop for, I'll use a variable j for example. This time the value of j is 0 to start with, and I want the loop run to until the value of j is less than the number that user puts in, and then if the value of j is less than this number, then every time loop runs I want to increase the value of j by 1. Okay, another opening and closing curly bracket. So what we want to do after when this loop runs, so we want to create another element. We'll create a constant, call it td document.create element, and we want to create this element called td, which is table data cell. And if I minimize this and if I run this one, if I type in a number. So this is a cell, table data cell. This is a row, this is a row, this is a column, this is a column, and this is a column. Okay, so we're creating this element table data cell, which is this. Now we have created two elements. One is table row, which is this one, and one is table data cell, which is this one. And we are not creating one, we are creating a number of these dynamically according to the number that is typed in by the user. Okay, now these elements will have to be appended to a web page or to the table in our case. Okay, so what I have to do next is to append okay, so I'm appending this table row to this table data cell. We also have to append all this to this element. So I will say box, which is this element here, append child, and we want to append this tr to this element. Okay, we are almost done. However, if I save it, you'll notice that nothing happens. Okay, if I type in a number, the table looks like as it was even before we created these elements. That's because our elements do not have any CSS properties. So I will assign some CSS properties to these elements. I will say td set attribute and the style we want to give is border 1 pixel solid black. Okay, so we've created this element table data cell, and we want each cell to have a style border thickness 1 pixel, and the color of the border will be solid black. So if our code is right, we should be able to see the cells. Okay, and that's where we are. Even if we do not use this, the table data cells are created, but because they do not have any border, so they're not visible. I also want to reuse this statement, but not for table data cell, for table raw. And the style I want to use is background color, and I want to use the color of light green. So if I save it now, refresh this, obviously made a mistake here. This should be a colon, not semicolon. So save it, refresh it, and there you have it. Type in a different number, type in a different number. That's how you can create a table, and you can create some elements dynamically, and you can change the values. And in the next lesson, I'll show you how to make some changes to this script so that you don't have to type in a number. The script will you generate a number and will create these elements dynamically without you having to type in a number. Thank you very much.